Your brother is getting a divorce, so we need you to watch his kids." My mother's voice cut through my phone like a rusty blade. No greeting, no pleasantries. Just another demand disguised as family obligation. "Hello to you too, Mom." I balanced the phone between my shoulder and ear while reviewing depositions at my kitchen table. "When exactly are we talking about?" "This weekend. Royal has important legal meetings to attend to, and Caroline is being difficult. Difficult. That was Zlata's favorite word for any woman who didn't immediately bend to her son's will. My name is Brianna, and I've been hearing that word applied to myself for 35 years. "I have work, Mom. I can't just drop everything because work." Her laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Brianna, you're a failure with free time. The least you can do is help your brother during this crisis." I set down my pen and stared at the legal brief in front of me. 3 years of law school, passing the bar on my first try, building my own practice from nothing. And to my mother, I was still just the disappointment who couldn't keep her own marriage together. "Fine," I said. "I'll take the kids. Good. Royal will drop them off Saturday morning. And Brianna—" Her voice took on that syrupy tone that always preceded a verbal knife. "Try not to fill their heads with your bitter divorced woman nonsense. They need stability right now." The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a long moment, then looked around my modest but comfortable apartment. Law books lined the shelves, case files organized in neat stacks on my desk. This wasn't the life of a failure. This was the life of someone who'd clawed her way up from nothing while her family actively rooted against her. Saturday morning arrived with Royal's signature dramatic flair. He swept into my apartment like he owned the place, designer suit perfectly pressed despite the early hour. "Bree, you're a lifesaver," he said, not meeting my eyes. Behind him, 9-year-old Sophia clutched her little brother Bennett's hand. Both kids looked exhausted. "Where's Caroline?" I asked, kneeling down to Bennett's level. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" "Mommy's sick," Bennett whispered. "She's been crying a lot." Royal's jaw tightened. "Caroline's having some emotional issues. The stress of everything. You know how women get." I stood up slowly, studying my brother's face. The golden boy, Mom's perfect son, the one who could do no wrong. Even now, watching him dismiss his wife's pain with casual cruelty, I could see why our mother worshipped him. "How long do you need me to watch them?" "Just today. Maybe tonight too, if my meetings run late." He was already heading toward the door. "Sophia, Bennett, be good for Aunt Brianna. I'll see you soon." And then he was gone, leaving me with 2 confused, scared children and a growing knot of anger in my stomach. "Are you hungry?" I asked the kids. "I make excellent pancakes." Sophia nodded tentatively. As I moved around the kitchen, I listened to them whisper to each other in the living room. Bennett was asking when Mommy would stop being sad. Sophia was promising him everything would be okay, but her voice shook with uncertainty. These weren't just kids caught in a messy divorce. These were children living in fear, walking on eggshells, trying to make sense of adult cruelty they shouldn't have to understand. After breakfast, while the kids watched cartoons, I stepped onto my balcony and made a phone call. "Caroline, it's Brianna. Are you somewhere safe to talk?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Yes. The kids. Are they okay?" "They're fine. They're worried about you." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Caroline, we need to meet. Soon. There are things we need to discuss about your case." "My case?" "Your custody case. The one I'm going to help you win." Silence stretched between us. Then, quietly, "You said you couldn't represent family members." "I said I couldn't represent Royal. I never said anything about representing you." When I hung up, I walked back to my home office and opened the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. Inside was a thick folder, labeled Riley Family Communications. Text messages, voicemails, emails. Years of documentation I'd been collecting without really knowing why. Now, I knew why. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my mother's contact. Her last text was from this morning. Don't let the children see you looking so disheveled. Royal needs them to have positive role models right now. I screenshot the message and added it to a new folder on my computer. Exhibit A. Caroline chose a coffee shop 40 minutes from our neighborhood, tucked away in a strip mall where no one would recognize us. When I arrived, she was already there, hunched over an untouched latte, dark circles under her eyes like bruises. "Thank you for coming," she whispered as I sat down. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, cutting straight to the point. Her hands trembled as she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "Look at these." The text messages from Royal made my stomach turn. "You're being hysterical again. The kids don't need to see their mother acting crazy. If you keep this up, I'll make sure you never see them again. My mother thinks you should consider medication for your emotional problems. Caroline, there's more." She scrolled down. "Your mother has been texting me too." Zlata's messages were surgical in their cruelty. "Royal deserves better than this drama. Think about what's best for the children. Perhaps some time apart would help you gain perspective on your behavior." "She's been doing this for months," Caroline said. "Every time Royal and I fight, she swoops in with these suggestions about how I should handle things, how I should be grateful, how I'm damaging the children with my instability." I set the phone down carefully. "Tell me about the fights." Caroline's voice dropped to barely audible. "He doesn't hit me, not exactly, but he'll corner me in rooms, get right in my face when he's angry. He punched the wall next to my head last month, left a hole." "Did you document it?" "I took a picture of the wall. But Brianna, he fixed it the next day and told the kids I'd done it during one of my episodes." She laughed bitterly. "Your mother suggested I see a therapist about my destructive tendencies." The familiar burn of rage started in my chest. This was the same playbook they'd used on me during my divorce 3 years ago. When my ex-husband Harrison and I split, my family had immediately assumed I was the problem. Royal had actually told people I was going through a phase and that Harrison was too good for me anyway. "What made you reach out to me specifically?" I asked. Caroline looked up, and for the first time, I saw steel in her eyes. "Harrison referred me to you 6 months ago, when I first started thinking about divorce." "Harrison? My ex-husband?" "We ran into each other at Bennett's school event. I was crying in the parking lot after Royal humiliated me in front of the other parents. Harrison recognized me, asked if I was okay." She paused. "He told me about how your family treated you during your divorce, how they never supported you, never asked for your side of the story." My throat tightened. Harrison had been the only person who'd seen through Royal's charm during our marriage. He'd tried to warn me about my family's toxicity, but I'd been too deep in the fog to listen. He said you were the smartest person he'd ever known, and that if I ever needed a lawyer who understood what it was like to fight this family, I should call you. "So you've been planning this?" "I've been surviving this." Caroline pulled out a small notebook. "I started documenting everything after Harrison and I talked. Every cruel comment, every threat, every time your mother interfered in my marriage." She flipped through pages of careful handwriting, dates, times, exact quotes. This wasn't just evidence. This was a woman preparing for war. "There's something else," she said, her voice shaking. "Last week, Royal told Bennett that if Mommy and Daddy got divorced, it would be Mommy's fault for being mean. Bennett asked me why I wanted to make Daddy sad." "Jesus, Caroline." "He's turning them against me, Brianna. Just like your mother turned your family against you." She leaned forward. "But I won't let him win. I can't." I studied her face, The determination mixed with desperation, the way she held herself like someone ready to fight or flee. This wasn't the compliant woman who'd sat quietly through family dinners while Royal dominated every conversation. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to destroy him in court." Her voice was steady now. "I want you to use everything you know about how this family operates. Every manipulation, every lie, every cruel thing they've said to you over the years. Caroline, if I take this case, there's no going back. My family will never forgive me." She smiled, and it was sharp as glass. "Good. They don't deserve forgiveness." I pulled out my business card and slid it across the table. "Then let's burn it all down." As she took the card, her phone buzzed with a text from Royal. "Hope you're using this time to think about what's really important. The kids need their mother to be stable." Caroline showed me the screen, then deleted the message. "Actually," she said, "don't delete that. We're going to need it." 2 weeks into building Caroline's case, she dropped a bombshell that changed everything. "He's starting a real estate company," she said, sliding a folder across my desk. "Royal Properties LLC. Filed the paperwork last month." I opened the folder and scanned the documents. "Caroline, your husband works in insurance sales. He doesn't know anything about real estate." "Exactly. But look at this." She pointed to a bank statement. "He's been moving money into business accounts. Lots of money. Money that should be marital assets." The numbers made my blood run cold. Over $60,000 transferred in the past 6 weeks, all labeled as business investments and startup capital. "He's hiding assets," I said. "Classic divorce move. Make it look like the money's tied up in a legitimate business venture so it can't be divided." "There's more. He's been showing people around town, telling them he's this big real estate mogul now. My neighbor said he tried to get her to invest in some development project." I leaned back in my chair. "We need proof that this is fraudulent. Real proof." "What kind of proof?" "The kind where he admits it himself." I picked up my phone. "I'm calling Celeste." My best friend answered on the second ring. "Please tell me you need me to do something illegal." "Not illegal, just morally questionable." "Even better. What do you need? Can you meet me for lunch? And bring your acting skills." An hour later, Celeste sat in my office wearing a business suit and fake glasses, looking every inch the successful professional. She'd been my college roommate, my maid of honor, and the only person who'd never bought into my family's version of reality. "So I'm a potential investor," she said, reviewing the plan. "I have money to throw around, and I'm interested in Royal's real estate empire." "Right. But you're also wearing a wire." I held up the tiny recording device. "We need him to admit that this whole business is just a way to move money around. And if he doesn't take the bait, then we'll find another way, but Royal's ego is his weakness. He can't resist playing the big shot." Caroline looked nervous. "What if he recognizes Celeste? She was at your wedding." "That was 8 years ago, and Royal was too busy being the center of attention to notice the bridesmaids." Celeste grinned. "Plus, I've changed my hair 3 times since then." The meeting was set for that afternoon at Royal's favorite restaurant, the kind of place where he could hold court and impress people with his supposed success. Celeste went in first, and Caroline and I waited in my car across the street. "I can't believe we're doing this," Caroline whispered. "You want to protect your kids or not?" Through the restaurant window, we could see Royal gesturing animatedly at Celeste, who was nodding and taking notes like an eager investor. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "He's taking the bait. This guy is unreal." 20 minutes later, Celeste emerged and got in the back seat of my car. "Holy shit, Brianna. Your brother is even worse than you described." "What did he say?" "Everything. He told me the whole business is basically a shell company to protect assets during his unfortunate domestic situation. Those were his exact words. She held up her phone. Got it all recorded. Caroline grabbed the phone and listened to the audio. Royal's voice came through clearly. Between you and me, this divorce is going to get messy. My wife's lawyer doesn't understand business structures, so having everything tied up in the company protects me from losing half of everything I've worked for. He actually said that? Caroline's voice was shaking with rage. Oh, it gets better, Celeste continued. He also said, and I quote, "Women get emotional during divorce proceedings. They don't think strategically like men do." Then he winked at me. I'm going to kill him, Caroline muttered. No, you're going to let me destroy him legally. It's much more satisfying. I started the car. We need to get this to my office and make copies. As we drove, my phone rang. Mom's contact photo filled the screen, a formal family portrait where she's positioned right next to Royal, both of them smiling while I'm half hidden in the back. Brianna, I need to talk to you about your attitude lately. My attitude? Royal mentioned that you've been asking Caroline inappropriate questions about their marriage. This is none of your business. I pulled over and put the phone on speaker so Caroline could hear. What kind of questions? Legal questions. About their finances and personal matters. You're not her lawyer, Brianna. You're family. Act like it. Caroline's eyes widened. Royal had told our mother about our meetings, but he'd obviously spun it to make me look like the problem. Mom, I'm just trying to help. You're trying to insert yourself into drama that doesn't concern you. Royal is handling this divorce properly, through appropriate channels. He doesn't need his unstable sister stirring up trouble. There it was. Unstable. The word that had followed me my entire adult life. I have to go, Mom. Brianna, I'm serious. Stay out of this. Royal has enough stress without you making things worse. I hung up and immediately screenshot the call log, adding it to my growing evidence file. She called you unstable, Caroline said quietly. She's been calling me that for years. Every time I disagree with Royal, every time I don't fall in line with the family narrative. I looked at her in the rearview mirror. But now we're going to use it against them. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Your brother is going through enough without your interference. Some things are more important than your need for attention. I showed the message to Caroline and Celeste. Jesus, Celeste said. No wonder you're so fucked up about family stuff. Save it, I told Caroline as she started to apologize. We're adding it to the pile. The pile? Every cruel text, every dismissive comment, every time they've made you or me feel crazy for seeing the truth. I smiled grimly. They're about to learn that their words have consequences. The motion to remove me from Caroline's case arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a courier who looked apologetic about the whole thing. Royal had hired Marcus Webb, the most expensive divorce attorney in the city, and their first move was to claim conflict of interest. They're saying you can't represent me because you're Royal's sister, Caroline said, pacing around my office. Can they do that? They can try. I flipped through the legal filing. But family relationships don't automatically create conflicts of interest in divorce cases. We just have to prove I can represent you competently and ethically. What if the judge agrees with them? Then we find you another lawyer and I help from behind the scenes. I looked up at her. But I don't think that's going to happen. The hearing was scheduled for Friday morning. I spent the week preparing my defense, knowing that Royal and his expensive lawyer would try to paint me as emotionally compromised and unprofessional. Friday arrived grey and drizzling. As I walked up the courthouse steps, I spotted my mother standing near the entrance, dressed in her best black suit like she was attending a funeral. Brianna. She intercepted me before I could reach the doors. We need to talk. I have a hearing to get to, Mom. About this nonsense with Caroline. You're embarrassing the family. I'm doing my job. She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Your job is to support your family, not tear it apart. Royal is your brother, your blood. And what about Caroline? What about those kids? Caroline made her choices. She married into this family, and now she wants to destroy it because she can't handle being a proper wife. Zlata's voice dropped to a hiss. But you're supposed to be loyal. You're supposed to understand what family means. I pulled my arm free. I understand exactly what this family means, Mom. That's why I'm here. Inside the courtroom, Royal sat at the plaintiff's table with Marcus Webb, looking confident and composed. He nodded at me like we were old friends meeting for lunch instead of adversaries in a legal battle. Judge Patricia Morrison called the hearing to order. She was known for being no-nonsense and impatient with frivolous motions. Mr. Webb, you're claiming that Ms. Brianna Riley cannot ethically represent the defendant due to familial relationships. Please state your case. Webb stood, all polish and expensive suit. Your Honor, Ms. Riley's judgment is clearly compromised by her personal relationship with both parties. She has intimate knowledge of family dynamics that could prejudice her representation of Mrs. Caroline Riley. And how exactly does this create an ethical violation, Mr. Webb? Ms. Riley has a documented history of mental instability and conflicts with her family. Her own mother will testify that she's been acting erratically and making inappropriate inquiries into private family matters. I felt Caroline tense beside me. This was exactly what we'd expected. They were going to use my family's own words against me. Judge Morrison looked at me. Ms. Riley, how do you respond? I stood, keeping my voice steady and professional. Your Honor, Mr. Webb's motion is without merit. There is no ethical rule preventing me from representing Mrs. Caroline Riley, simply because I'm related to her husband. In fact, my knowledge of the family dynamics makes me uniquely qualified to represent her interests. But surely your personal feelings toward your brother— My personal feelings are irrelevant, Your Honor. I'm bound by the same ethical obligations as any attorney. I will represent my client zealously within the bounds of the law. Webb jumped back up. Your Honor, we have evidence that Ms. Riley has been encouraging Mrs. Riley to make false accusations against her husband. She's clearly using this case to settle personal scores. What evidence, Mr. Webb? We called Zlata Riley to testify about her daughter's recent behavior. My mother walked to the witness stand like she was approaching a throne. She raised her right hand and swore to tell the truth, then looked directly at me with cold satisfaction. Mrs. Riley, Webb began, can you describe your daughter Brianna's recent behavior regarding this divorce? She's been obsessed with destroying her brother. She's always been jealous of Royal's success, and now she's using Caroline to get revenge. Has she made any statements to you about this case? She told me she was going to burn it all down. Those were her exact words. Zlata's voice carried perfectly through the courtroom. She's always been unstable, especially since her own divorce. She can't handle seeing other people happy. Caroline grabbed my hand under the table, but I squeezed back reassuringly. Mrs. Riley, I said when it was my turn to cross-examine, when you say I'm unstable, can you provide specific examples? You've been acting erratically, asking inappropriate questions. What questions specifically? About Royal's business affairs? About private conversations? You mean questions about potential asset hiding and emotional abuse? Webb objected, but Judge Morrison overruled him. Mrs. Riley, are you aware that asking questions about asset disclosure and domestic relations is part of standard divorce proceedings? Zlata faltered. Well, yes, but— And when you say I told you I would burn it all down, were you aware that I was referring to fraudulent business practices and documented emotional abuse? Objection, Your Honor, leading the witness. Sustained. Ms. Riley, rephrase. Mrs. Riley, what exactly did you think I meant when I said I would Burn it all down. My mother's composure cracked slightly. I assumed you meant the family, that you wanted to hurt Royal. Did it occur to you that I might have meant I would expose illegal activities? Objection! Judge Morrison banged her gavel. That's enough. Mr. Webb, your motion is denied. Ms. Riley may continue representing her client. This hearing is adjourned. As people filed out of the courtroom, Royal approached me. Nice show, Bree. But this is just the beginning. I'm counting on it. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. You have no idea what you're getting into. Family is everything, and you just chose the wrong side. No, Royal. I finally chose the right one. That weekend, I spread everything across my dining room table like a war room. Text messages, emails, voicemails, bank statements, photos, years of documentation that told the real story of the Riley family dynamics. Caroline sat across from me, staring at a particularly vicious text from Zlata. Your emotional outbursts are damaging the children. Royal deserves a stable home environment. I can't believe I saved all of these, Caroline said. Thank God you did. I held up my phone, scrolling through my own collection. Look at this one from last Christmas. Mom texted me. Try not to bring your bitter divorced energy to dinner. The children don't need to see that kind of negativity. She actually wrote that? She writes a lot of things. I pulled out a thick binder. 3 years of documentation. Every cruel comment, every dismissal, every time they made me feel like I was crazy for seeing what was really happening. Caroline picked up a printed email. This is from Royal to your mother. Brianna is spiraling again. Maybe we should stage an intervention about her mental health. That was when I started law school. Apparently wanting to better myself was a sign of instability. The doorbell rang, and Celeste walked in carrying Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. How's the evidence compilation going? She asked, setting the food down. We have enough to bury him, I said. But Caroline's getting cold feet. Caroline looked up sharply. I'm not getting cold feet. This feels so nuclear. It is nuclear, Celeste said, opening the wine. That's the point. But what if we're going too far? What if this ruins Royal's reputation permanently? I set down the document I was reading and looked at her directly. Caroline, what did Royal tell Bennett last week? She winced. That mommy was sick in the head, and that's why she was being mean to Daddy. And what did your mother-in-law tell Sophia? That if I really loved my children, I would stop causing problems for the family. And what happened when you tried to take the kids to your sister's house for the weekend? Caroline's voice got smaller. Royal said I was trying to alienate them from their father. He threatened to call the police and report me for kidnapping. Celeste poured 3 glasses of wine. Honey, this man has been systematically destroying your credibility and turning your own children against you. He doesn't deserve your protection, but the kids will see all of this someday. They'll know what their father really is. They already know, I said gently. They're living it every day. The question is whether you want them to keep living it. Caroline was quiet for a long moment, then picked up another text message. This one was from Royal to her. Keep acting crazy and see what happens. I have lawyers, and you have nothing. He sent this 2 weeks ago, she said. After you asked him about the missing money from your joint account? Yes. I questioned why $5,000 disappeared, and he told me I was being paranoid and controlling. She looked at the message again. Then he sent this. I pulled out my laptop and opened a new document. We're going to use every single one of these. But Caroline, once we do this, there's no going back. Your marriage is over, and Royal will never forgive you. My marriage was over the moment he decided I was the enemy instead of his partner. Caroline picked up her wine glass. What do you need me to do? First, we need you to record the next family dinner. Record it? Your phone, in your purse. We need to capture how they actually talk to you and the kids when they think no one's listening. Celeste leaned forward. What about getting Royal to admit more stuff on tape? Too risky now. He's suspicious after the investor meeting. I pulled out a legal pad. But we have something better. Caroline, tell me about the garage incident. Caroline's face went pale. How did you? Sophia mentioned it to Bennett while they were at my place. She said Daddy locked her in the garage because she was being too loud. It was only for 20 minutes, Caroline said quickly, then caught herself. God, listen to me. I'm making excuses for him. What exactly happened? Sophia was having a meltdown about going to bed. She was crying and screaming, and Royal just snapped. He picked her up and put her in the garage, turned off the lights and locked the door. Where were you? Upstairs with Bennett. I didn't know until I heard her screaming from outside. Caroline's hands were shaking. When I ran down and demanded he let her out, he said she needed to learn that actions have consequences. Did you document this? I took pictures of her afterwards. She had scratches on her arms from trying to get out, and she wet herself from fear. Celeste set down her wine glass hard. Jesus Christ, Caroline, that's child abuse. I know it is. But Royal said if I ever told anyone, he'd make sure I never saw the kids again. He said no one would believe me over him. I looked at the photos on Caroline's phone. Sophia's tear-streaked face, the scratches on her little arms, the wet pajamas. We're using this, I said firmly. But what if the judge thinks I'm a bad mother for not protecting her? The judge is going to think Royal is a dangerous father who shouldn't have unsupervised access to children. I saved the photos to my laptop. Caroline, this isn't about protecting Royal's reputation anymore. This is about protecting your kids. She nodded slowly, then pulled out her phone and started scrolling through more messages. There's something else, she said. Royal's been telling people that you're the one encouraging me to make false accusations. He's setting you up to look like the vindictive sister who's manipulating his poor, unstable wife. Let him try. I have 3 years of law school and a bar license. He has charm and a fake real estate company. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. I hope you're proud of yourself. You're destroying your brother's life for attention. I screenshot the message and added it to our evidence file. Actually, I said, he's making this easier for us. Every lie he tells, every manipulation he tries, it's all going to come back to haunt him in court. Caroline raised her wine glass. To burning it all down. To protecting those kids, I corrected. Same thing, Celeste said, and we all drank to that. The night before the custody trial, Royal showed up at my apartment at 11 p.m. I could smell the alcohol through the door before I even opened it. We need to talk, he slurred, pushing past me into my living room. Royal, you're drunk. You need to leave. You think you're so smart, don't you? He spun around, pointing at me with unsteady fingers. Little Brianna, finally getting her revenge. I'm representing my client, that's all. Bullshit! He moved closer, and I could see the rage in his bloodshot eyes. You've always been jealous of me, always wanted what I had. What you had. You mean the fake business? The emotionally abused wife? The terrified children? His face darkened. Those are my kids, Brianna. Mine. And if you think some bitter divorced bitch is going to take them from me, you're even stupider than Mom thinks you are. Get out of my apartment, Royal. Or what? You'll call the cops? He laughed harshly. Who do you think they'll believe? The successful businessman or his crazy sister who's been stalking his family? I pulled out my phone and started recording. I'm asking you to leave. Now. Put that fucking phone away. He lunged for it, but I stepped back. This is exactly what Caroline deals with, isn't it? The threats, the intimidation, the gaslighting. Caroline is unstable. She needs help. not some ambulance-chasing lawyer filling her head with lies. What lies, Royal? The financial records, the text messages, the photos of Sophia after you locked her in the garage? His face went white. She told you about that? She told me about all of it. Sophia was having a tantrum. I was teaching her discipline. You locked a 9-year-old in a dark garage until she wet herself from terror. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. Royal ran his hands through his hair, suddenly looking less drunk and more desperate. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Caroline's been impossible to live with. The kids are acting out because she's filling their heads with poison about me. So you decided to traumatize your daughter? I made a mistake, okay? One mistake. But Caroline's been documenting everything, twisting everything to make me look like some kind of monster. You're a monster, Royal. He stepped toward me again, his voice dropping to a whisper. If you go through with this tomorrow, you'll never be welcome in this family again. Mom will cut you off completely. You'll be alone, just like you were after your divorce. I was alone during my divorce because you all chose sides before you even heard what happened. Because we knew you, Brianna. We knew you were the problem. I stopped recording and looked at him with something that might have been pity. Get out. This isn't over. Yes, it is. After he left, I called Caroline and played her the recording. Oh my God, she whispered. He actually admitted to the garage incident. And threatened me, and basically confessed that the family has been gaslighting you. I saved the audio file. We're using this tomorrow. Brianna, are you sure you want to do this? He's right about one thing. Your family will never forgive you. Caroline, my family stopped being my family a long time ago. They just never bothered to tell me. The next morning, the courthouse was packed. Royal sat with Marcus Webb, looking composed and professional in his best suit. My mother was in the gallery, along with several family friends who'd come to support the golden boy. Judge Morrison called the court to order. This is a custody hearing in the matter of Caroline Riley versus Royal Riley. Ms. Brianna Riley, you may present your opening statement. I stood, looking directly at Royal. Your Honor, this case is about protecting 2 innocent children from a pattern of emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and psychological terrorism that has been enabled and encouraged by multiple family members. Webb objected. Your Honor, that's inflammatory language. Overruled. Continue, Ms. Riley. The evidence will show that Mr. Royal Riley has systematically isolated his wife, hidden marital assets, threatened her with loss of custody, and subjected his children to psychological abuse. Furthermore, his mother, Zlata Riley, has actively participated in this campaign of intimidation. I walked to the evidence table. We have documented text messages, recorded conversations, financial records, and photographic evidence of the harm Mr. Riley has caused to this family. Mr. Webb, your opening statement? Webb stood smoothly. Your Honor, this is nothing more than a vindictive attack orchestrated by a bitter sister-in-law who has manipulated a troubled woman into making false accusations. Mrs. Caroline Riley has a documented history of emotional instability, and Ms. Brianna Riley has a personal vendetta against her own brother. The first witness was Caroline. She took the stand with quiet dignity, her voice steady as she described years of manipulation and control. Can you tell the court about the garage incident? I asked. Caroline's voice broke slightly. Royal locked our daughter Sophia in the garage for 20 minutes because she was crying at bedtime. She was scratching at the door, screaming to be let out. When I found her, she had wet herself from fear. Did you document this incident? Yes. Caroline identified the photos, which were entered into evidence. Webb's cross-examination was brutal. Mrs. Riley, isn't it true that you've been seeing a therapist for depression and anxiety? Yes. And isn't it true that your own mother-in-law has expressed concerns about your mental state? Zlata has made comments, yes. Comments such as calling you unstable and unfit to care for the children, I objected, but the damage was done. When Zlata took the stand as Royal's character witness, she painted a picture of Caroline as an unfit mother and me as a manipulative troublemaker. Brianna has always been jealous of Royal, she testified. She's using this poor woman to get revenge on her own family. Mrs. Riley, I said during cross-examination, you sent my client a text message saying, if you really loved your children, you would stop causing problems for the family. Do you remember that? I was trying to help her see reason. By threatening her relationship with her children? I wasn't threatening anyone. I pulled out my phone. Your Honor, I'd like to play a recording made last night. Webb objected frantically, but Judge Morrison allowed it. Royal's drunken voice filled the courtroom. Those are my kids, Brianna. Mine. And if you think some bitter divorced bitch is going to take them from me, you're even stupider than Mom thinks you are. The gallery erupted. Zlata's face went ashen as she heard her son's true voice. Mrs. Riley, I continued, does this sound like a man who should have unsupervised access to children? She couldn't answer. When court adjourned for the day, I saw Sophia in the hallway with the court-appointed guardian. She looked up at me with those big, serious eyes. Aunt Brianna, she whispered, can we stay with you tonight? We'll see, sweetheart. We'll see. The second day of trial opened with my closing argument. I'd spent all night crafting it, knowing this was my one chance to lay bare everything the Riley family had hidden for years. Your Honor, I began, this case isn't just about a custody dispute. It's about breaking a cycle of generational abuse that has been normalized, enabled, and perpetuated by multiple family members. I walked to the evidence table, picking up the binder of text messages. These communications show a pattern of psychological manipulation designed to make Mrs. Caroline Riley question her own reality. When she expressed concerns about her husband's behavior, she was told she was overreacting. When she documented financial irregularities, she was called paranoid. When she tried to protect her children, she was labeled unstable. Judge Morrison leaned forward, listening intently. The defendant's own mother sent text messages telling Mrs. Riley that if she really loved her children, she would stop causing problems. This is textbook emotional abuse, making the victim responsible for the abuser's actions. I held up the photos of Sophia. When Mr. Riley locked his 9-year-old daughter in a dark garage until she urinated from terror, he wasn't teaching discipline. He was teaching fear. And when his wife tried to address this incident, the family closed ranks to protect him and silence her, Webb objected. Your Honor, Ms. Riley is making speeches, not legal arguments. Overruled. Continue, Ms. Riley. The financial evidence shows systematic asset hiding through a fraudulent business entity. We have recorded admissions from Mr. Riley himself that this company exists solely to protect assets during his unfortunate domestic situation. I played Celeste's recording again, Royal's voice echoing through the courtroom. Women get emotional during divorce proceedings. They don't think strategically like men do. This is how Mr. Riley views his wife, not as an equal partner, but as an emotional liability to be managed and controlled. I turned to face Royal directly. But perhaps most damning is the recording from 2 nights ago, where Mr. Riley, intoxicated and angry, revealed his true feelings about this custody dispute. The audio played again. Those are my kids, Brianna. Mine. And if you think some bitter divorced bitch is going to take them from me, you're even stupider than Mom thinks you are. Several people in the gallery gasped. Royal's face was stone, but I could see the panic in his eyes. Your Honor, children are not possessions to be owned. They are human beings who deserve protection from adults who view them as trophies in a power struggle. I walked back to the counsel table. Mrs. Riley isn't asking this court to punish her husband. She's asking for the safety and well-being of two children who have already suffered enough. The evidence is clear. Mr. Riley poses a psychological and emotional danger to these children, and his family system enables and encourages this abuse. I ask this court to grant Mrs. Riley full custody, with supervised visitation only for Mr. Riley, pending completion of anger management and parenting classes. I sat down, my heart pounding. Webb's closing was predictable, attacking Caroline's mental health, questioning my motives, painting Royal as a loving father caught in a vindictive ex-wife's web of lies. Your Honor, Ms. Brianna Riley has orchestrated this entire proceeding to settle personal scores with her own family. She's manipulated a troubled woman into making false accusations against a devoted father. But his words felt hollow after everything the court had heard. Judge Morrison retired to consider her decision. The wait felt eternal. When she returned, the courtroom was silent. In the matter of Riley versus Riley, this court finds that the evidence presented demonstrates a pattern of emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and psychological intimidation that poses a clear danger to the minor children. Royal's face went white. Mrs. Caroline Riley is hereby granted full physical and legal custody of Bennett Riley and Sophia Riley. Mr. Royal Riley is granted supervised visitation only, contingent upon completion of court-ordered psychological evaluation, anger management counseling, and parenting classes. The gavel came down with finality. Caroline collapsed into sobs of relief. Behind us, I heard Zlata's sharp intake of breath. As people filed out of the courtroom, my mother approached me, her face a mask of cold fury. "You've destroyed your brother," she hissed. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not a mother, but a woman who had spent decades protecting a son who didn't deserve protection while sacrificing a daughter who needed support. "No, Mom. I just gave Karma a microphone. Don't you dare speak to me like that. After everything this family has done for you." "What has this family done for me?" I interrupted. "Tell me one time, one single time, when you chose to support me instead of Royal." She opened her mouth, then closed it. "When I got divorced, you told people I was going through a phase. When I went to law school, you said I was having a breakdown. When I tried to build my own practice, you called it a hobby." My voice was steady, controlled. "You've spent 35 years telling me I wasn't good enough, smart enough, stable enough to matter. Well, guess what? I just proved you wrong. Brianna, we're done, Mom. We've been done for years. I just finally realized it." I walked away, leaving her standing alone in the empty courtroom. Outside, Caroline was hugging her children, tears streaming down her face. Sophia looked up at me with those serious eyes. "Are we safe now, Aunt Brianna?" "Yes, sweetheart. You're safe now." As we walked toward the parking garage, I pulled out my phone and deleted my mother's contact information. The last voicemail from her, a rambling message about family loyalty and forgiveness, went straight to digital trash. No more chains, no more guilt, no more pretending that blood relations meant more than basic human decency. I was finally free. The knock on my office door came on a Thursday afternoon, 3 weeks after the trial. I looked up from my case files to see Caroline standing there with Sophia and Bennett, all three of them carrying wrapped packages. "We brought you something," Sophia announced, marching into my office like she owned the place. "You didn't have to—" "Yes, we did," Caroline interrupted, setting a small gift bag on my desk. "Open it." Inside was a framed drawing in Sophia's careful 9-year-old handwriting. It showed stick figures of her, Bennett, Caroline, and me, all holding hands under a rainbow. At the bottom, she'd written, "Aunt Bree keeps us safe." "Sophia made that for you," Bennett said proudly. "And I helped with the rainbow." I felt my throat tighten. "This is beautiful, guys. Thank you. There's more." Caroline said, pulling out a larger package. "This one's from me." It was a bottle of expensive champagne with a note attached. "For the woman who taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up when it matters." "Caroline, you don't need to thank me. I was just doing my job." "Bullshit," she said, then glanced at the kids. "I mean, baloney. You saved our lives, Brianna. All of our lives." Sophia climbed into the chair across from my desk. "Mommy says we don't have to see Daddy unless we want to." "That's right, sweetheart. And only with other grown-ups there to make sure everyone's safe." "Good," Bennett said firmly. "Daddy was scary when he got mad." Caroline and I exchanged a look. The kids were already healing, already speaking their truth without fear. "How are the supervised visits going?" I asked Caroline quietly. "Royals missed the last two. His lawyer says he's processing the court's decision." She rolled her eyes. Translation: he's sulking because he didn't get his way. My phone rang, and I glanced at the caller ID. Unknown number, but the area code was local. "Brianna Riley Law Office." "Ms. Riley? My name is Jessica Martinez. I got your number from Caroline Riley. I need help with a custody case." I motioned for Caroline to wait. "What's your situation, Jessica?" "My husband's family is trying to take my kids away from me. They're saying I'm an unfit mother because I work 2 jobs and can't afford their private school anymore. His mother keeps texting me about how I'm damaging the children with my instability." The familiar pattern made my blood run cold. "Jessica, can you come in tomorrow morning? 10 a.m.? "Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much." After I hung up, Caroline was smiling. "Another one?" "Another one." I looked at Sophia's drawing again. Words getting around, apparently. "Good. There are a lot of women out there who need someone like you in their corner." Celeste appeared in my doorway, carrying coffee and wearing a satisfied grin. "I just saw the news about Royal's business license being revoked. Turns out the state doesn't appreciate fraudulent real estate companies." "Really?" "Really. He's also facing potential charges for filing false business documents." She handed me a coffee. "Karma's working overtime these days." Bennett tugged on my sleeve. "Aunt Bree, can we come visit you again soon?" "Anytime you want, buddy. My door is always open for you guys." Caroline gathered up the kids' backpacks. "We should let you get back to work. But Brianna, thank you. For everything." After they left, I sat alone in my office, looking at Sophia's drawing. 3 weeks ago, I'd been the family disappointment, the unstable sister who couldn't keep her own life together. Now I had a thriving practice, clients who trusted me, and the respect of my peers. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Zlata. We need to talk about repairing this family." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. The next morning, Jessica Martinez sat across from my desk, her hands shaking as she showed me text messages from her mother-in-law. The words were different, but the pattern was identical. Gaslighting, manipulation, threats disguised as concern for the children. "They keep saying I'm being selfish," Jessica whispered. "That if I really loved my kids, I'd let them live with people who can provide properly for them." "Jessica, let me ask you something. Do your children feel safe with you?" "Yes. They tell me everything. They come to me when they're scared or hurt or happy." "Then you're not the problem." I pulled out a legal pad. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning." As Jessica began her story, I thought about Sophia's drawing, about Caroline's strength, about the chain of women who would find their way to my office because someone had finally stood up and said, "Enough." My phone rang again. Another unknown number, another woman's voice asking for help. I smiled as I scheduled the appointment. "Let's burn another legacy down," I said quietly, and got back to work.